Pledge of allegiance. Reach your neighbors.
It's this. Either bad or based on. Sometimes the first time. She got.
Problem, no problem.
Sometimes. Right kicking.
Our reflection today will be offered by Beth Weaver.
Let us pray. May we be the voice of reason. May we give comfort to those who live in disarray. May we show compassion to those who are most distressed. May we continue to serve with grace and humility to your glory. Amen.
Thank you, Beth. Welcome Rotarians and guests. One thing I wanted to say, I think there's a little bit of confusion with some of us getting solicitations from, I'm not sure if it's district or national, about Rotary Direct. Instead of every Rotarian every year. Bill tells me that November is Foundation Month. But we will be starting our very own every Rotarian every year program in early 2026. I would kind of urge you to wait for our local campaigns instead of responding, coordinating with the secretary support.
Great, well, welcome everyone. I've filled in as president, never filled in as secretary, and these are big shoes to fill, so no judgment here. I've already failed, forgot to move the flag out, so don't tell Len, okay? So one announcement I wanted to make, we're actually in the Al Van Lee tournament timeframe right now. We had our clinic yesterday, and we had a good showing for that with the kids. About 70-ish kids, so a little bit better than last year. Had a lot of food show up, so if your kid participated, thank you. This weekend is our tournament on the 21st and the 22nd. So if you have nothing going on, come out and bring some food. Get to the games for free. We'll be doing a 50-50 and some raffle baskets for that. But the other thing is hopefully you received an email about donations to the people to people. And basically in the past, you could have made like a dollar amount and your name can go on the program and that kind of stuff. We don't really do programs at the tournament anymore. So now it's just $50 if you're interested, and that can cover a turkey for somebody at people to people. If you didn't receive the email or not really savvy with emails, I did bring some extra copies of that, and you can grab one from me, and then you can bring them back here or mail them back. The address is on there. So any questions on that? You can see myself or Mike Stevenson, we're co-chairing this. With that, Laura Neal has our travel marathon. So first up is Marty Starkey and her guest.
This is really tomorrow, March, she didn't meet him this morning. This is Donnie Gian, and he's recently retired from Sherwin-Williams.
Next is Bob Gordon.
Please introduce members of the speakers company and family today. We have Jason Seaman, Jen Pertee, and Susan Beat.
All right, and then the back of the room, we'll start with Don Noble.
I brought my father today, David Noble. He's here to keep the speaker honest.
And then lastly, Ron Homses.
My guest today is Sean Michael Murphy, the new director of People Mexico.
Well, I think that's it for me, so all you.
Well, welcome to our guests. We hope you enjoyed today's program in the Fellowship of Wooster Rotary. We hope to see you again at future meetings. And so I will introduce Doug Druschel, who will introduce.
Before Doug gets started, I thought.
I'm sorry.
I thought you were going to exchange students.
Oh, right.
I just wanted to tell you, if anybody who gets to see Ashara in the play this weekend at Wooster High School, you have an opportunity Saturday evening at 7 or Sunday at 2, and she is fabulous. And I just admire the heck out of her that she had the guts and courage to do that, being new in the community, so I just wanted to mention that.
Well, can you guys say something today?
Hello, everyone. So last weekend it was the opening night of Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, and it was just the most fantastic time I've ever had here. We were like super excited to perform in front of people, and one of the main reasons that I chose the US to be my exchange country was I wanted to experience like high school theater and perform here, because I am like very interested in theater and all the performing arts. So yeah, so I was like super excited. It was the most amazing time, and the audience were amazing. And also, if you want to see me perform in the musical, there's still a chance. Saturday and Sunday, you can come and see us. And in other news, I've also joined the Worcester Speech and Debate team, and I'm very excited. I'm currently preparing for my tournament, so it's been great, and I'm very excited. So thank you.
And I'm gonna say she thinks it's very cute.
Well, with that, I can introduce Doug Druschel, who will introduce our speaker.
Thank you. Before the formal introduction, we have a little video that we would like to play. So we'll start with the video.
I'm Richard Seaman, chairman of Seaman Corporation. We are a company that manufactures industrial fabrics. Innovation is at the core of everything we do. My father, Norm Seaman, founded this company in 1949 with a simple idea. He began by sewing lace around baby doll diapers. His never-ending desire to develop new products quickly led to our commercial success. One of the company's earliest innovations was the development of vinyl-coated nylon fabrics for the truck tart business. Soon after, we developed vinyl-coated polyester fabrics for the architectural structure industry. In the early 70s, Seaman Corporation launched the world's first porta-mod, a frame-supported fabric structure. We followed that with products for the marine industry and a wide variety of military applications. Concentrating on textile innovations, Seaman Corporation pioneered the first weft-inserted knitted industrial fabric, which continues to be the mainstay of the industry. In 1975, our persistence led us to develop a fabric coating that has exceptional chemical resistance. We market these fabrics as our XR technology products for environmental containment. Combining our knowledge of creating durable architectural fabrics with our expertise in compounding for extreme chemical environments, we introduced a single-ply roofing membrane called FiberTite in 1979. With the right combination of our core technologies, we introduced a urethane-coated fabric for use in above-ground fuel storage tanks for the military. Through decades of bold exploration and careful experimentation, Seaman Corporation has developed 5 areas of expertise. fabric formation, compounding, coating, finishing, and fabrication. These are the technology platforms that drive each of our new product innovations. They are the DNA of Seaman Corporation. Our ability to combine these technology platforms to find creative solutions to meet our customers' needs will drive the future growth of our company.
Okay, I'm pleased to introduce today Richard Seaman, Chairman of Seaman Corporation, as you just saw. A little nervous about this now because I'm afraid Dave Noble will make sure this is all true. Dick served as CEO at Seaman Corporation from 1976 to 2015, assuming the leadership role of his family business in 1978 after his father passed away at the young age of 55. Under his leadership, Seaman Corporation, manufacturer of industrial coated fabrics, grew from $10 million in annual sales to over $350 million in sales today. Listen to that number. That's growth in sales is nothing short of phenomenal. Dick also serves as chairman of the Burton D. Morgan Foundation, whose mission is to support entrepreneurship and free enterprise system. In 2012, he was asked by the governor of Ohio to serve as a commissioner on the Ohio Third Frontier, a billion-dollar initiative focused on creating an innovation and entrepreneurial ecosystem in the state. In addition, he's a member of the Young Presidents Organization and an emeritus trustee of the College of Wooster. He's been recognized as an honored life member of his industry trade organization, the Industrial Fabrics Association International, and was selected as a Wall of Fame honoree by the Worcester Area Chamber of Commerce. In 2015, he was chosen by the Ernst & Young as Entrepreneur of the Year in the Family Business category. An avid skier, sailor, photographer, and tennis player. He and his wife Judy live in Worcester, and they and their families, their 3 children, are committed to being active owners and stewards of their family enterprise. I might add that Dick and his family are committed to the greater Worcester area community, always ready to pitch in for the betterment of our area. While not in his official bio, I can also attest that he was one of my mother's favorite students at Wayne Dale High School. Please join me in welcoming Dick Seaman.
Thank you, Doug. You have to go back a long way to talk about your mother and teaching me trigonometry and algebra. She's also one of my favorite teachers. I look out over here and I see a lot of familiar faces, people that I've known for a number of years, and then a lot of unfamiliar faces. But because of all the familiar faces that really I share great friendships with, Dave, you're not the only one out there to keep me honest. And it's a pleasure again to have a couple staff members from our organization here and our son, Jason. They thought they were coming to keep me honest, but in reality, they're here to answer the tough questions that I might get later on. So, you know, I've made presentations before Rotary in the past, and the most recent one actually was that long ago, it's 2019, when I talked about the book that I published, The Multi-Generational, A Vibrant Vision of Multi-Generational Entrepreneurship. And so trying to come to this today when Doug invited me and think about something that isn't just repetitious that you've heard before, it was a bit of a challenge, but we agreed to talk about innovation and sustainable growth. And when we talk about sustainable growth, I'm going to do that within the context of succession planning. Because you can create a culture of innovation, but if you don't have effective succession planning in place, both in terms of leadership succession, which is kind of what we first think about, but also in a family business in terms of family shareholder succession going forward, to assure that that cultural component of innovation is multi-generational. So you'll hear me talk a bit about both of those things today. As soon as I learn which button to push here, whoops. Innovation is important if you want to be a multi-generational business, or even if you want to grow a business, because if you want to be multi-generational, there is constant changing going on. And it's the reason that when I started writing my book a few years ago, I had innovation as the first chapter. Because we're talking about multi-generational, and we want that to be there. Whoops. I'll get it straight before we're all done here. It has to be a strategic requirement to have an innovation culture that you've got here. And the innovation is unique to every organization. There's no kind of cookie cutter way to do it, as I learned, as I was trying to build this to be culturally part of our company. Every company around innovation has its own secret sauce, and it's got to be led from the top of the organization so it maintains its priority. I also stress the fact that it's got to be focused on organic growth and not growth by acquisition. Because if you can't create a solid culture of innovation in your own business, if you're going to acquire businesses, you're not going to help them be innovative there. So that's what's important for that. As Doug pointed out, and as you could see from the video that we showed, we've been very, very fortunate in terms of the growth of our business. And, lest you think that some of these processes I talk about or that are in the book that I wrote are simply for large organizations. I can tell you that when we celebrated our 25th anniversary, we were doing less than $7 million a year in sales. So I basically think by identifying these processes and applying them effectively to your organization, that's really what is effective at driving growth in business. If you're going to grow your business the way we've done it there, obviously you have to make investments in growth. And this is in capital equipment that you have, plant, property, and equipment. And we have a culture for doing that. In the 1960s, we built a new facility in Millersburg, where our business was located. In that same decade, we established a facility in Sarasota, Florida. And my dad made the first investment in a hot melt coating line that was imported from Europe. And it was actually, came over in 1968. It became the basis for one of our real key technology platforms. And you'll hear this later as I talk about additional investments down the road. But it became a technology that allowed us to develop a lot of unique competitive products. During the 70s, we purchased our plant in Bristol, Tennessee. They were actually a competitor of ours, and they were not very successful. So they went on the block, and we took advantage of buying that capacity, which was a very good strategic decision at that time. Unfortunately, as Doug pointed out, in 1978, my father died at a young age of 55 from lung cancer, and I became the CEO of the business at that time. During the 1980s, we expanded the Bristol operation. And then as you can see at the bottom, we made a very, very significant strategic decision to relocate to Wooster, Ohio. And this was not only an important decision for our company, but as you well know, it was a very important decision for the community as a whole here. In the 1990s, we made a decision to close the Sarasota plant. The vision that my father had for that just didn't evolve very effectively. But we took those funds and we invested in a new weaving and knitting facility in Bristol, Tennessee. That was state of the art and continues to be so today. During the 2000s, we expanded in Worcester, and then we enhanced this coating capacity of the hot melt coating technology. The business or the equipment my father bought in the late 1960s, we found similar equipment in Bristol, Tennessee when we bought that plant, which was one of the reasons we bought the plant, to get the additional capacity. But by the late 90s, the products produced on that technology platform were so successful that we had run out of capacity, basically. So we spent several years trying to find new equipment that would be enhancing that production capability. We found equipment in Europe. It was a a wider width equipment, which would let us make fabrics that were wider width, and it processed at a higher speed, so it would make all of our associates more productive that were running on that. It was a challenging thing to buy because we knew it would take 2 years from the time we placed the order with the Italian company to be designed, produced, shipped, and installed. And 3 weeks after we placed the largest single capital investment for the company, 3 weeks after that, 9/11 happened. So there was this whole question about whether we should go forward with that investment. We stayed true to our commitment to that because we invest for the long term. And the equipment came over here on time, on budget, got up and running, and within 6 months of running, I could see we'd be running out of capacity on that machine. So we went over and bought a second one and installed it in our Bristol, Tennessee plant. We also made an investment in new wide width adhesive coating line to take full advantage of the wider width of the hot melt coating line that we had. During the 2010 to 2020 decade, we expanded our Wooster office facility up here and did a complete renovation of it. We acquired beaming capability, which was a backward integration of our weaving operation, and another plant in Bristol, Tennessee. And we built a new Seaman training facility here in Worcester. During this time period, because we have all this capacity, we've also had a heritage of product innovation. You saw most of that in that video that was just shown. But some of the early products that my father was involved in, as you could see, it was a cut and sew operation to begin with. And in those early years, one of his products was that cowboy outfit that my brother and I got for Christmas. It turned out to be my first and only modeling job. But it was the truck tarps. It was really our first sustainable product. As we pointed out, he built some old coating equipment, good old products or equipment, and built this coater line that would coat vinyl coatings on nylon fabrics to replace canvas truck tarps. That product, in terms of sustainability, is still prevalent today. We are the leading domestic manufacturer of fabrics for the truck tarp business. And then I like to think of my father as being kind of ahead of his time. He also developed an inflatable boat that you see there. Unfortunately, during that time period, we didn't have the ability to break into the marine market, and it was not a successful, sustainable product. But if you go around any marina today, you'll see nothing but inflatable tenders to serve the boats that are out there. A number of industrial military products, again, pointed out in the video, a wide variety of application. And then the architectural fabrics. Interesting enough, I always like to say that we manufacture industrial fabrics, a very competitive market place that we're involved in, but we actually sell fabric into China. And those three structures on the left that you see are air support structures that cover tennis courts in Beijing, China, which they've been there for almost 20 years at this time period. A little side story, I see Ann McCall is here with her husband, and I did a presentation a number of years ago for an entrepreneurship class over at the College of Worcester. And after it was over, this young Asian person came up to me and he said, "Mr. Seaman," he said, "put that slide back up." And I said, "Okay." So I put it up and said, "See that tall skyscraper in the back? That's where I live." It's a small world in many ways. The structure in the middle is the air supported structure that is in the Football Hall of Fame in Canton. If you drive up 77 and look to the left, you will see that structure that's made out of fabric. It was produced here in Wooster, Ohio. We just last month had our annual sales meeting in that, or our annual business planning meeting in that structure, over 250 associates, and it was really fun to do. It was a great presentation, great opportunity, and they would all look up and say, "Well, this is our fabric that we're having here." So a lot of fun things that we're able to do with our fabric. We make applications, again, for environmental. The job on the left there is Singapore. The other two are protecting the oil field areas in Alaska. And then our single ply roofing product. They pointed out in the late 70s, early 80s, we took this technology that we had for architectural fabric and the technology from the environmental platform and made a single ply roofing product that has become our most successful product today and drives our growth. In fact, you probably recognize that center picture when the new high school was built. They selected fiber tight roofing to protect that roofing area there. Last year, we had the opportunity to celebrate 75 years in business. It was a great year of celebration. Our communications people set things up in a number of our community locations. Some of you may have attended the celebration we had here in Worcester. As we were doing the work on this, one of the things that surprised me was that less than 10% of Fortune 500 companies last 75 years. Of course, we have our own experience with that here in Worcester, but that was pretty remarkable. So it just tells you the challenges that there are around succession planning. We continue to make investments in product innovation to continue this growth for the next 75 years. We're doing experimental work with fabrics for greenhouses. In fact, we have a test structure out of the OARDC now. And then we've looked at applications of fabrics. These are acoustical blankets that are currently being used by warehouse distribution companies to help minimize the noise of conveyors that they have that are taking these products out to the shipping dock, that area. So again, a unique application that we try to identify and fill a need there. And then the single ply roofing product, by continue to innovate in that particular area and combine more products with it, we have become the product of choice for data centers. And I'm sure that unless you live in a cave, you've heard about the investment that's going into data centers around the country. This is not necessarily new for us. One of our first data centers was done for Google over 20 years ago, because we can share with the people that are constructing these that we have proven performance with this fiber tight single ply roofing product. We also continue to invest in growth. Right now, we're adding 10,000 square feet to our headquarters facility here in Worcester. And in Bristol, we're making an investment into a new 100,000 square foot manufacturing facility that will have another hot melt coated line in that's larger and faster and more productive than the ones that I talked about earlier. So those are investments in products and investments in plant property and equipment. As I mentioned early on, you also have to invest in succession planning. And what's the reason for doing this in a family business? Well, family businesses are very, very important to our economy. As you can see here, 60% of Ohio businesses are family owned, and they contribute a great amount to both the employment and to the GDP of the state. In North America, Family Business Review says that 8 out of 10 businesses are family businesses. They create 64% of the GDP, nearly $6 trillion worth. The research company Edelman has a trust barometer that they do. 75% for purchase from a family business, 54% of the people prefer to work for a family business, and 66% are willing to pay more for a product or service in a family business. The problem is with this that the success and survivorship of family businesses is pretty low. In fact, Ernst & Young has a ratio they call the 30-10-3. 30% last through the first generation, 10% through the second generation, and only 3% last through the third generation. And this is why you often hear shirt sleeves to shirt sleeves in 3 generations. If you want to sustain your business and to sustain your growth, it requires creative succession planning processes. It requires the ability to grow talent and to transfer that knowledge from generation to generation, and then to continue to sustain the culture of innovation across generations that are there. Only 30% of family businesses have a robust, documented, and communicated succession plan in place, and the vast majority of those are focused on leadership succession, not necessarily family ownership succession. That's why in my book that I wrote, I dedicated 2 chapters to the governance, which is important around the leadership side, and then the shareholder education and engagement of future family shareholders. Leadership succession for our company wasn't a big problem for a long time, because from the time my father passed away until 2015, I kind of bore that mantle at that time period. But in 2015, even though I didn't want to get out of the saddle, I just thought it was a necessary thing to do to step aside and let our family and our board of directors find new leadership at the CEO level. And they selected John Crum, who was an internal person. Most of you, or many of you, know John. He's been a great community person here. And he's certainly been with our company for 15 years and was the selected person to be the CEO. He ran the company for 5 years, continued its growth, and decided to retire early. That was a bit of a surprise to the shareholders and the board, but it also gave us the opportunity now to go on the outside. John had not been CEO long enough to truly train a successor for him at that point. So our family and our board had the opportunity to go to the outside, and we were fortunate to find an excellent candidate, Jeff Schwartz, again, somebody that is pretty active in the community, and I think many of you know Jeff. And as you can tell by the graph that I presented earlier, he and his team are doing an incredible job of maintaining and sustaining the growth of our business. Back up here, again, it's not easy. You've got to be proactive. You've got to look at it far in advance. In a family business, that's a very important, if not the most important role of the board of directors, is to find new leadership, but it's got to be done in alignment with what the family shareholders are interested in. The shareholder succession, family shareholder succession part is a bit more complicated. When I bought my family out in 1994, right? My father died in 1978. Our family did really well together for a long time, although all of them lived in Florida. They left me up here in the cold climate to run the business. But we ultimately went the kind of way that is in those statistics I showed earlier, where it causes the demise of family businesses because there's just polarization. Some of it natural, some of it you just have to be proactive about. But after I bought them out at their request in 1994, ownership succession became an entirely different problem. Prior to that time, there were 4, what we call generation 2, and 10 generation 3, 10 grandchildren of my parents. Once I bought them out, then there were 3. Jason and his 2 sisters were generation 2, and there were at that point, no generation 3. So the plans for succession planning would be different. Our 3 children really didn't have any involvement with the family business. They were either too young, in Jason's case, or off to college and saw their careers someplace else. And they had seen a lot of the turmoil around the family business and didn't seem to have an interest in that. So I spent a couple of years trying to understand. So now, what are my options in terms of what to do with this business in the future? Fortunately, I reconnected with a family business consultant that I had met about 25 years earlier, John Ward. I had not seen him or had any interaction with him over this 25-year time period, but at a seminar, family business seminar, I learned what he had been doing. And part of what he had done as a consultant was study 5,000 family businesses, specifically for the purpose of trying to find out which ones were successful at passing the business on beyond the 3rd generation. And it just confirmed the statistics that E&Y showed. Less than 5% were able to do that. But then he did a deeper dive. He looked at those 5% and tried to understand what made them so successful at being able to continue this ownership beyond the 3rd generation. And he identified things like being committed to an outside board of directors and good shareholder education. He created a model for ownership of a family business that he called active shareholders. which was in sharp contrast to what we even hear today, where the conventional thinking is, if you don't have a child that wants to have their career in the business and be involved in it, then you have no choice but to sell the business. Well, his idea was that the careers didn't have to be in the family business, but the family members wanted to see that the business continued on and that it retained the culture and the values of their parents at this point. We're very, very fortunate that our two daughters and Jason, two daughters, Carrie and Kim, over a period of time, as they studied this opportunity, essentially embraced this idea. Now, we've been working at this for about 25 years, so I've got to tell you, it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. And the real value, I mean, for us, what we're blessed is that just about the time you think you've got a handle on all this, the growth of your business, the successful growth of the business, the diversity of the business, not to mention then the growth of the family, because now we have grandchildren, so Gen 4 is starting to become of age. It just makes it much more complex, and you have to really work hard to stay. You have to be very proactive and very definitive about the family ownership side. I've often said, really, since we started this process, you have to spend as much time and effort and energy on family ownership in a family business as you do, let's say, on marketing or on human resource. It's just an important function. If you want it to be multi-generational, more recently, our children, Generation 3, along with Judy and me, have been doing what we call a visioning process. We've been working with consultants with the primary purpose for Generation 3 to try to understand how is ownership of this family business going to look for the three of them when their parents are gone. And so we worked with a couple of very, very good consultants in the family business arena. And one example, I mean, this was a process, but one of the early things that we did was to create a history map. And as you can see, we had a white sheet of paper that was about 25 feet long. And everybody went up there and kind of identified the important things of their life, both the business things, as well as the personal family things that happened, starting all the way back with my grandfather, who worked with my father. The end result was a pretty graphic history of our company. That just as you look at it, you don't see all the details. It's almost archival for us. And when we start talking to our grandchildren about the history of the company and are able to show them this, it's just a great graphic representation. It was a fun project to do and a very meaningful one to do for both Judy and I, and for us to see not only our children, but our children's spouses were involved in this process too. So it was pretty good. Now, they continued on for a couple more days, and they have identified family enterprise vision for 20 years out, 2045. And it's aspirational, obviously, in nature, but what would they like to see retained and sustained in the family business enterprises that we have as we go forward here? So this, they're authoring on their own. Then we have the issue of how do we educate the next generation, Generation 4 at this point. And we involve them, even at a very young age, in the family business activities so that they can understand the uniqueness and to some degree the privilege of being able to be an owner of a family business, but not from the standpoint of an entitlement, more importantly, from the standpoint of stewardship. And when you stop and think and you share with them that the work we do as shareholders through the board of directors and selecting good managers is important to 450 families, or it's important to the communities where we have operations. It gives them a greater sense of opportunity there and responsibility there if they want to undertake it at that point. So we do these different activities once a year at a family assembly. This was done 2 years ago at Wild Dudes down in Charleston, and we had 14 family members there. We had a number of programs that were going on, including a successful multi-generational family business come in and talk about how they do it and interact with their family business. And then we have some fun things to do. Now, you stop to think about grandchildren, and the ages range from Jason's youngest, when his son is at the time was 7 years old. Jed, who attended this, and then our oldest granddaughter was 23 at the time. So Jed's, and we're having this meeting, kind of a room like this, around usually a table and presentations being made. Jed's sitting over in the corner. I'm a little concerned about whether he's going to be engaged or not at 7 years old. He's got a pad and paper, his drawings, he's okay at that point. And I talk about not only the history of comedy, but I started out because my mother had just passed away at the age of 100. Their great grandmother, and most of them had not had, or many of them had not had a chance to meet her because she was in a memory care facility in Sarasota, Florida. But I wanted them to understand what she did as a woman in supporting my father and raising 5 children and starting to build this business. And so I shared that amongst a number of other things. But when we had a break, Jed gets up and comes over to me with this pad of paper, and he's got these sketches up here. And the first one says, my great grandparents getting married on the 4th of July, which is something that I told them. Or my great great grandfather landing an airplane. Well, my father was a B-24 pilot, and he flew for United Airlines for a while. And the best legacy he left me was corporate aviation, as some of you out there know at this point. And then he draws a roll of fabric, and then he draws the factory where it's manufactured. So you can't underestimate what these young children will absorb, and it's never really too early to start sharing with them what not the entitlement benefits, but the stewardship and the value there is of having the privilege of being involved with a family business. We did another one just last month in Pittsburgh where we had 12 family members there. Had a lot of activities. We had a seminar on AI. We had a separate session for just generation 4 at this point to help them understand a vision for their personal life. Because they have to have a vision for their personal life before they can effectively integrate a vision of family, being involved in a family business at this point. And again, we do fun things. We went to the San Rico and Biscotti, and all of us made our individual pizzas, just a number of other things to do. And our grandchildren, again, ranging in age, all enjoy this and make a commitment to leave their schooling or the jobs or whatever they're doing to spend a weekend with the family and talk about this. So that's kind of an important part, I think, of sustainability and growth sustainability. And again, things you don't commonly hear about around family businesses. So with that, I will open it up to any questions or comments you have. And as I said, if the questions are too tough, I've got a great staff down here and a family member that can answer for you.
Is
In fact, there's some laws, public policy laws around estate tax planning in some countries in Europe, that if you pass the family business on to the next generation, and the next generation agrees to run it and to keep the people employed, there is no estate tax. And so, you know, the culture of other countries, again, there's some examples in my book, illustrate the fact that there's greater importance put on the value of family businesses there than there is here. The other issue we have in this country that makes it difficult is that it's much easier in this country to monetize your equity than what it is in other countries. I mean, there's private equity companies call me a couple of times a week, you know, do you want to sell? Do you want to sell? So if you haven't done succession planning, then it's pretty easy to find a way to monetize your equity interests there. Because as you could hear, this is not something you do just overnight or when you're ready to retire. Does that answer your question? There's somebody, the SC Johnson company is a very good company here in our country that's multi-generation. Gore-Tex, we've met them, they're a family-owned business. Vermeer, which makes equipment for taking trees down, heavy kind of equipment out in Iowa. So we really network with a number of companies that have been successful, but they are rare, very, very few of them.
Ted, you've done a magnificent job, I would expect. I'm curious about what's your take on AI? Is it as dangerous as some say, or is it, where are we going with it?
Should ask my son. Well, I think the first thing you have to realize is it's here. I mean, and it's here very, very rapidly. You can think back at the internet when it first came out, it kind of baffled everybody. And we've had great, obviously, uses of the internet, and we've had some bad uses of it that continue on. I think AI is just going to expedite that experience. AI is amazing, and I think trying to find a way that you leverage it to make the workforce more productive and or, well, then you have to teach the work, you have to have a workforce that knows how to use it, is going to be a challenge, but I think it'll have more positives than negatives going forward.
Thank you, Dick.
You
Thank
betcha.
you so much.
Appreciate that we have a four-way test and with our rotary four-way test on either side. Thank you so
Very
much.
much. Thank you.
I'd like to remind you that the Alvin Lee is this weekend, 21 and 22. And unless we have other business, we stand adjourned.